Hey guys, so I'm going to review Resident Evil 4 Remake today. I'll give you a summary of my sentiments towards the main campaign and separate ways. Then I'll dive into my opinions on the gameplay and level design of each chapter. Next, I'll dive into the story and the characters. Afterwards, I'll talk about the graphics and art style. In the penultimate section, I'll review the music and OST. Finally, I will compare the remake to the original. It's going to be a long one, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video enough to like, hype, subscribe, comment and share. God bless you for watching regardless. Now let's get this. Let's start with a summary of my sentiments towards the remake. Main campaign, gameplay. The gameplay loop for Leon is fine. It's a fun time for the most part. There are issues with the aiming system and Leon's movement speed and tank-like movement, even though tank controls aren't featured in this game. Story. While I can appreciate the serious tone the story of the remake took, I think some more campiness and character rapport would have increased my affinity for the story. Characters. I can respect a serious take on Leon and his trauma from the events of Resident Evil 2 Remake. I do not like his seriousness and dry delivery of jokes in Resident Evil 4 Remake. Leon's personality in RE4 OG is one of the things that sold me on the original. Graphics and art style. The muted colours are cool, but I wish the colour palette was brighter. It makes sense for the colour scheme to be muted given the serious approach the developers took when remaking the so-called lightning in a bottle video game. The art style is cute. I like some of the new interpretations of enemies and the interiors of Ramon's castle. Music and OST. Why doesn't Serenity play when you are in a save room? Diabolical if you ask me. The new interpretation of save theme for the typewriter is cute, but I miss the eerie vocals and instrumentation textures that the original has. Comparison to RE4 OG. I think the voice acting in the OG is superior. I think Leon's personality in the OG is superior. I think the remake handled lore really well and in a more in-depth way. I think the remake improved Luis's and Ashley's presence and characterization for the most part. Separate ways. Gameplay, fine gameplay and level design, a fine improvement over the original. Again, there are issues with the aiming and shooting system and Ada's movement speed, even though tank controls are explicitly not featured in this game. I like the Mercenaries and I think I'll be doing a separate video one day on all the Mercenaries games, reviewing and ranking each one. Story. I like the remake's exploration of the Separate Ways story, but I wish it were like the OG where Krauser and Ada were both working for Wesker. Characters. I like Luis and Ada's rapport and that we get to see even more of him. I like that Ada shows a vulnerable side at times and is not just constantly serious and mysterious. Pesanta, the female Verdugo, is a cool addition to Ada's campaign and is a challenging foe, especially on professional difficulty. That remixed version of Serenity in the merchant shop menu is perfection. I love it. The main menu OST is heat. Like, it really embodies Ada's mystique and light on her feet vibes and aesthetic. Comparison to the 2005 OG. Comparison to the 2005 OG. I played the OG Separate Ways DLC years ago and I don't remember liking it very much. Possibly hating it, but I can't remember. All I know is the remake mogs it in every way besides voice acting. No shade. If you guys want me to, I'll make a separate ways video. Let's now talk about the gameplay. Main campaign. So I will go through each chapter of Leon's campaign in a moment, but first I want to talk about controlling him. Leon runs too slowly. If I'm not mistaken, the developers made the enemies, particularly the ganados, faster to keep some of the tension now that Leon can move while shooting. I hate this, it's not fun. Obviously you can say get good and skill issue, but Leon runs diabolically slow. At the very beginning of the game, his running speed is bellissimo. Then once he gets to the first house, it's like he developed fatigue and was preserving his energy for the rest of the game. I wish you could dip and glitch with the striker and not just with that charm that is difficult to get. It just feels like, because you can move while shooting, the developers at Capcom said, let's take a game that's main gameplay loop revolves around standing still while shooting a ton of enemies that are coming towards you at a reasonable pace. and fix what wasn't broken. Allegedly, of course. What I mean by this is, I appreciate being able to move while shooting, but that doesn't give the developers the right to make the ganados move at lightning speed and have the most aggressive AI ever. Like, if Leon was running as fast as he was at the start of the game, then I would respect the ganados' newfound level of speed and agility, but that's not the case, so the ganados need to take it down a notch. Period. I like the parry system. I prefer Leon's knife handling in the OG, as I find it led to smoother gameplay, but his remake jab approach is tolerable. However, the parry mechanic does remove some of the tension, especially if you're a parrying god or goddess. I sometimes wish the developers just kept the parry mechanic for Krauser's encounters, only because it would have given new players and OG players a closer experience to the original game, or at least a game mode or difficulty where knife parrying is disabled except for Krauser encounters. Okay, so now onto the gunplay. I remember I was watching a no damage run of Resident Evil 4 Remake years ago. I think it was Carcinogen SDA's channel. He was explaining and complaining about RE4 Remake's aiming and shooting system. Like, when the reticle is over an enemy and you press shoot, sometimes your bullets will just miss. It's so bad that speedrunners had to use a technique called pause buffering, where they guaranteed shots that connect with an enemy's hitbox by pausing and unpausing the game quickly and repeatedly. I don't know or think it's ever been fixed, but it's not good because inconsistent gunplay is a massive turnoff for replay value in my book. I think the weapons are fine in this game, but I'm not a gun expert, so I can't get too detailed with you guys there. I like the Silver Ghost look, a very sleek and stylish design. The red 9 with the stock attached is cool. I like Leon's varied aiming styles and repositioning, as it's a nice subtle visual way of telling us he's leveled up his skills since 1998. I don't appreciate how you take some damage when you get grabbed though. It should have been like in the original where you have time to free yourself because damage is taken. Now let's go chapter by chapter of Leon's campaign and I'll tell you about my feelings towards each one. Chapter 1. The village siege section is great. I remember when the demo came out, I was playing it over and over again. A great way to introduce the game's gameplay mechanics just like the OG did. I like the tower ladder trick that players can use on ganados. It's a good strategy for avoiding damage, at least until Dr. Salvador arrives. The following room with the cowhead enemy is cool. I like the option of having stealth or straight up action approaches to clearing this room. The dynamite room before you get to Lewis is challenging because of the tripwires, well placed bear traps and enemy placements. If you're trying to run through, you need to be on your toes and watch out for the dynamite throwers and ganados that can catch up to you with lightning speed. A really good chapter all in all. Chapter 2. So let's talk about the rearranging of level structure and design that is a common occurrence in this remake. I love the fact that not only does the game take your gear from you, but then it forces you into a somewhat scary and stealthy section, and as a cool surprise for OG players, you don't get access to the merchant at the very start of the chapter. This was a very cool idea from the developers to bring more survival horror focused gameplay before switching back into the more action horror gameplay once you get to the merchant and Death Valley. Having Dr. Salvador appear again before you access Mendez's house was a very good jump scare / surprising moment, especially for an OG fan like me. The sphere puzzle or spherical puzzle was a little trickier than in the OG, but I really liked it all the same. Chapter 3, Del Lago, Round 2. The one thing I love about this boss fight is that if you get really good at it, you can one cycle the fishy monstrosity. No health regeneration for you, Del Lago. I've seen speedrunners do it and it's so cool. The church and the graveyard are giving church and graveyard. Unfortunately, it's a church belonging to a demonic cult, so...
It's a no for me, dog.
The fishing farm is cool. There are a lot of enemies, but it's fun to do a combination of stealth and straight up action when tackling that room, especially with the cowhead enemy and the archers. I find the shooting minigame very fun, but because of the dodgy aiming and shooting system, it can be quite frustrating at times, especially on controller. Chapter 4. I really love this chapter. What Capcom did with this chapter reminded me of RE1's remake. Instead of cutting down or keeping it exactly the same, they added more. I love Bork Island. I like the find the 3 key items to unlock the main key item gimmick in this section. I like some adventure in my action horror games. This section is a low-key, glorified spearfishing simulator. El Gigante Round 2. It's good. Leon's snail pace can be frustrating at times when trying to outmaneuver remake El Gigante, but I think that's my main complaint. I was watching a Carcinogen SDA no damage run of RE4 Remake, and he freed the wolf dog but just shot the bear trap instead of initiating the cutscene. I couldn't believe when he explained that the cutscene being triggered leads to remake El Gigante getting some of his HP back once the dog wolf joins the fight. It's a good thing that I don't typically do no damage runs because I like having the pup in the fight and seeing him and Leon verbally interact after the boss fight. I like the reworked church puzzle, not too shabby. Chapter 5. Navigating through the village square. It can be frustrating because of the colmillos and that friggin' cowhead, but Ashley's AI is mostly reliable, so it's not too bad. I love how in the following room with the windmill, if you're fast enough and stealthy enough, you can run past the enemies and make it to the merchant in the windmill. However, you have to mentally prepare and, via the merchant, prepare for one of the hardest levels in the game, especially on professional difficulty. I do like the wooden boards mechanic being brought back from RE2 Remake, but having the cowhead break one of them off is so demotivating to me. Then you've got them coming upstairs via the ladders, and it's really overwhelming. I think on my initial playthrough of RE4 Remake, I wasn't used to ducking and parrying, so I was having a hard time. But as you get better with timings of parrying and ducking, the cabin becomes a fun, skill-based level that ramps up the action horror of the game. Chapter 6. I find the first room with enemies in this chapter so frustrating for stealth. I like sniping the 2 archer ganados from afar, but the ganados on the ground have placements and routes that are really annoying. Plus, you have the well-placed bear traps that Ashley's AI will make her get caught in sometimes. Very frustrating, but it is what it is. The Double Bella Sisters moment is a tense and fast-paced section. I'm so glad they put lockers for Ashley to hide in while Leon locks in and takes care of business. I like the Mendez chase scene sequence because it reminds me of Mr. X. However, you have to make sure you have a shotgun and a flash grenade and make sure that Ashley is right behind you. Otherwise, you'll be seeing that room over and over again. I'm speaking from experience, if you couldn't tell. Bitorez's reworked boss fight is cool. I miss being able to delete him with incendiary grenades though, but that's alright. I hate the throwing moveset he has during his second phase, but overall it's a fun fight that forces the player to move around the room and keeps you on your toes. Chapter 7. I prefer the Stingray semi-auto sniper rifle over the bolt action rifle because I hate reloading the latter. I like the explicit introduction of the Type 2 Plagas, a very horrific moment, a very horror-focused moment. I appreciate that as a survival horror-leaning fan. I love that you can control the cannon in the remake. It's so satisfying to obliterate the zealot ganados from orbit. At first I wished I could have done that to the villager ganados, but then I remembered that the villagers are technically victims due to the actions of the zealots partly, so I refrained from that wish. Water Room is still annoying as hell, but if you get good and RNG is on your side, it's not too bad. Chapter 8. No shade, but not having to worry about Ashley is a breath of fresh air. Even though I feel a bit more relaxed, the game forces me to be on my toes as the Red Zealot chase sequence has been reworked from the OG. I'm glad the idiot doesn't have access to a turret, but the overwhelming amount of enemies that can transform into Type 2 Plagas because of him, and they can one-shot you, is a steep trade-off. I like the quick tablet puzzle in the reuniting with Ada room. The Type 3 Plaga introduction is a good dynamic jump scare. They are pesky little buggers though, aren't they? The TMP is great in dealing with them, I would say. The onslaught before you get to reuniting with Ashley near the maze room is quite something. It's cool that if you position a grenade right, or Leon in just the right spot, you avoid contact with enemies in certain rooms because you can destroy the things locking the gates. I think the addition of the El Gigante was great and kept me on my toes, trying to avoid damage from him and the zealots, whilst also trying to get the F out of there. Chapter 9. I really like that you can complete Leon's section in any order. I like to deal with the bridge room first. Flash grenade the red zealot before he can lower the bridge, grab the headpiece, equip shotgun for safety and crowd control, and you should be out of there in around a minute or less. Fast and efficient. I really love that Ashley can use the lamps to petrify the armaduras. It makes me feel more confident playing this section, but also keeps me on my toes still because the Blue Lantern's benefits are limited in time and quantity. The plate puzzle room is cute, a nice little bonding moment for Leon and Ashley. I like that they kept the backtracking from the original with the cart system thing that takes you from the current part of the castle back to the start of the castle. So with Ashley's section, it's really cool on a first playthrough. I like the lantern defense mechanic and the survival horror leanings of it, but on repeat playthroughs it's just giving walking simulator. Not as bad as Chloe's orphanage flashback though. Chapter 10. In this remake, having the Nobistador hive room and the double Garrador room back to back is crazy work from Capcom. I would say for both rooms to try and get in and get out because the game can overwhelm you with enemies and you'll get hit left, right and center. Just like in the OG, Verdugo becomes Verdugo to the power of 3 because that sucker gets RPG'd into cubes, ice cubes. Chapter 11. I love that Luis was included here. It never sat right with me how quickly he was cut from the OG's runtime. This whole chapter is really fun. Having Dr. Salvador return again and a Bella sister was a nice surprise and ramped up the action horror. The double El Gigante fight is alright. I'm so glad Luis comes to our aid in this fight. It makes the double boss fight a lot more bearable. I find the Red 9 to be unbearable without the stock during the minecart section. The Nobistador hive room is very tedious, but I just try to clear the room as quickly as possible. Now for the Krauser fight, the first one. I really like it. It does at times feel like a QTE session, but when you get good at this parry skill check moment, the time flies by quickly. I love Leon's magnificent kick that he demolishes Krauser with. It's one of the cool moves Leon has ever or will ever do in the games, period. Chapter 12. Let's talk about Salazar's revamped boss fight. Firstly, I love the golden egg gimmick. It's cool that you are rewarded for reading notes and making inferences that can affect gameplay. If you don't have golden eggs, I find I have mixed opinions on the boss fight. On the one hand, I find it to be a good challenge and a lock-in moment. On the other hand, I don't like Salazar's moveset, especially the projectile gunk attacks and his constant dipping in and out of view. Overall, a decent reworking of the classic fight. Chapter 13. The start of the island is tolerable, but the island as a whole is still not my favourite. The introduction of regenerators is great. I love watching YouTubers and streamers' initial reactions to the jump scare introduction of these double cheeked up enemies. The fact that they can run is so good yet so bad because of Leon's lackluster speed and tank-like movement. Chapter 14. While I don't mind having Ashley back for this chapter, there are some frustrating moments. For example, the room where she has to hold the wheel is really tricky, especially if you're trying to speed through it. The soldier ganados trying to get to Ashley and the addition of a regenerator puts me in stress central. The crane and ballroom is cool because you can use a few heavy grenades and one whack from Ashley's driving skills to clear the way and avoid that gauntlet of oncoming soldier ganados and the armed cowhead. The remake has not convinced me to like the first section of this chapter. Way too much action and enemies with guns. After I clear that chaos, I start to like this chapter a lot more. I like the blue medallion quest somewhat. I like the regenerator punching bag room. I don't like the onslaught of enemies before we make it to where Ashley and Sadler are. Too much action. But what can I expect on a military island? Now, Krauser round 2. He's much more of a challenge in this iteration of RE4. Heavy grenades are your friend when it comes to dealing with Krauser at the start. When I get to the final phase of the boss fight on Professional, I typically use an RPG as the phase starts. I could learn to parry his attacks, but I just haven't gotten round to it yet. Chapter 16. I'll be honest, I always purchase an RPG to delete Sadler. On my first playthrough, I was gonna fight him legitimately, but then Nobistadors came into the picture and the game is long enough as it is. So every time I get to Sadler's boss fight, I purchase an RPG to trigger his second phase. The second phase is somewhat Dead Space 1 final boss fight coded, which I appreciate. Separate ways. I'm sorry, but Ada's campaign mogs Leon's campaign. I sometimes find myself saying Ada's campaign is superior to Leon's. Her gameplay mechanics and level designs are really fun, and maybe it's because it's shorter, but I find it easier to replay, but it's just an amazing DLC remake. Probably the best one in the franchise, but we have to put respect on RE7 Biohazard's banned footage DLC. The amount of content we were given because the base game sold really well is actually a blessing. I can't wait to review RE7 on the channel one day. Anyways, that skill Ada can unlock from the merchant where she can use the grappling hook to pull away an enemy's shield is peak and goated. It always comes in clutch. Even the way she holds the knife, something about that just screams an experienced mercenary who is low-key more skilled than Leon. Maybe not in terms of strength and speed, but definitely in terms of skills and agility and trickery. Obviously, what was said about Leon's gameplay can be said about Ada's too. I do wish she ran faster, and I wish there was a mode where knife parries were disabled. Now, let's review Ada's gameplay chapter by chapter. I'll tell you my feelings towards each one. Chapter 1. Great intro. More Luis is always a good sign. It's cool that we start in the castle instead of the village. It's very symbolic of how important the castle is to the lore of the game, given that the plagas were buried deep below Salazar's home. I was so shocked yet thrilled that Ada's gameplay starts off with a boss fight, a nice blend of action horror. The DLC assumes you've played the main campaign before and uses that to throw you straight into the action to hook you into the game. Chapter 2. The start of Ada's village adventures. She infiltrates the local saturation. I like how stealth gameplay is advised here, but soon after you get away, a horde of enemies are sprung on you and you can decide to face them or just swoop out of there with the grappling hook. Chapter 3. The El Gigante fight is a treat. I wasn't expecting this boss fight on my initial playthrough at all. It would low-key have been amazing if Wesker backed up Ada. We could have gotten some dialogue peering into their working and or personal relationship, even some background on Ada's past. Chapter 4. Back to the castle we go. We've got to get some ingredients for Luis so he can cure Ada's ailment caused by Pesanta, the Black Robe. The part when you have to prevent Luis from losing all his HP when his lab is set on fire was so interesting to me. It could have just been a cutscene. Maybe the developers wanted to make the players feel like a lifesaver whilst also portraying Ada as somewhat caring, even though she just wants to retrieve an amber sample for Wesker. Chapter 5. Another double Garrador room is diabolical work from the Capcom dev team. It's a good challenge, but who was asking for another one of these rooms?
What more do you want from me?
Pesanta gets cleared by Ada. I find this to be one of the hardest boss fights in both this DLC and the main campaign. Chapter 6. Island Gal Time. While I love that they brought back the gondola, I still wish Leon got it in his campaign, at least so that we could have had Ashley doing a cheerful fist of approval each time Leon popped the ganado off the gondola. Martinico was a great and terrifying addition to the chapter, especially on a first playthrough of Separate Ways Remake. Ada getting Leon's iconic laser room kind of rubs me the wrong way. I wish they both got it to show off their mad skills. Chapter 7. Ada's moving like it's 1998 in the finale, having to navigate from up high the toughest onslaught of soldier ganados just to get a special RPG to Leon to save the cutie patootie and the 2004 RE Universe First Family's daughter. Let's move on to story and characters, both Leon and Ada's campaign stories. There are way better videos out there that go over the story and lore of this game that I will link in the description box. However, I will share my thoughts on the reworked, or should I say retcon story this remake offers. The Ashley Graham saga. Krauser kidnaps Ashley, Leon gets sent to Spain to retrieve her and has to engage with a new type of zombie that's not really a zombie, called ganados. They have a parasite in them called a plaga. The scientists involved in experimenting on ganados and other bioweapons infected with Las Plagas want to send Ashley back to the first family, particularly her father, to cause chaos to the world, order, and establish ultimate power. This is as succinctly as I can put the main focus of the story. I think RE4's story, OG and remake, is just a little far-fetched. The remake wants to be serious but doesn't send Leon in with an equally trained squad of agents. A member of the RE universe's first family has been kidnapped and the government only sends in one agent. It's ridiculous. Despite saying all of that though, I still like the story mostly. Since Requiem, I have learned not to take Resident Evil stories seriously at all. As Kratos said,
"Keep your expectations low, Prey, and you will never be disappointed."
The history of the villagers and Los Iluminados. I like that Luis's lore is explored more in this game. He is an anti-hero in my book. I like how we get more information on the scientists who were involved in all of the experiments. It makes me take the military island more seriously in the remake than the OG. Sadler just doesn't seem as important in the story as the OG. His less frequent interactions with Leon are boring and very serious, which makes his character less interesting as well. RE4 OG story worked well because of the way characters entertainingly and memorably interacted with each other while still giving us story information as well. Ada and Wesker's involvement. I wish Ada and Krauser were both working for Wesker like in the OG. It would have emphasized how far from grace Krauser had fallen since being Leon's combat mentor. Given that Ada was in a life or death situation, it would have been cool to hear her reminisce on her past, where she grew up, how she got involved with Umbrella and Wesker and Bioterror. Wesker taking Krauser's remains, presumably for future experimentation, makes me wonder how Capcom is going to tackle the Code Veronica remake, particularly Steve Burnside's outcome. Now let's discuss the main characters. Leon Condor 1 Kennedy. Let me start off by saying Nick A, Leon's voice actor, is really cool, and I know that he is a fan of the games, so I'll always respect his work and passion for voice acting. Leon is blandly serious in this game to me. To be honest, I am on the spectrum, but that doesn't excuse Leon's unfunny jokes. I think the issue is the direction and writing. Nick's voice acting is fine. I always feel bad when voice actors get compared to other ones because it's not like voice actors should copy each other, and voice directors can give crappy direction as well. I really love the acting moments where Leon gives older brother vibes towards Ashley, and when he clocks Ada's tea in regard to 1998 and how she used him. I felt so sympathetic towards Leon with the way Nick delivered that "or are you just gonna use me again" line. Also, I wish they kept the women line, or have some form of it, because even though not all women act like Ada, Leon has all rights to say women because Ada used him in 1998, and that definitely affected how he views women, unfortunately. It could have been a subtle implication of that. Story of my life makes sense though, because Ada is always right there and then she slips away. It happens in 2, 4 and 6, much to Leon's dismay. Leon's still cool and hot, but he's not as vibey and chilling like a villain as OG Leon. Ashley, Baby Eagle, Graham. I like Ashley's portrayal in the story. The voice acting and writing is fine, and Ashley feels very human and real because of it. I really appreciated her thinking of Luis and pledging that her and Leon should get off the island for Luis. It shows heart, courage and loyalty, something hopefully her presidential family instilled in her. I like how she is really scared when Leon first makes contact with her, and that she isn't blindly trusting of an American because another American had kidnapped her. I think OG Ashley is cool like OG Leon says, but remake Ashley is really cool. Luis, ladies man, Serra Navarro. He's quite fun to play with in the Mercenaries. I'll say this, they should have kept Luis's ballistic joke and have Ashley stand up for herself like she did in the OG. I do love the expansion of Luis's character in the main campaign and separate ways. I think he is a well-written character. He's more interesting and you really get a sense of him as a person thanks to the lore notes and certain things he says around Leon, Ashley and Ada. The voice acting is stellar and very authentic in my opinion. I like the OG's voice acting for Luis more, but the remakes is still top tier in my book. We have to put big respect on Luis for realizing the error of his ways and allowing Leon and Ashley to make it safely back home to the US of A. Adawong, mother. She's cool, she is the moment, she is Adawong. I think with better direction, writing and voice acting, this would have been my favourite portrayal of Miss Wong. It's still a great iteration of her, regardless of how I feel about it. Her design and her gameplay are phenomenal. I think she should have kept her personality from the OG though. In the remake she's just giving straight up mercenary with a conscience at times. Her chemistry with Leon is kind of off or not really there. Leon doesn't really seem interested in her like before in 1998 or like in the RE4 OG. The developers should have kept in that scene where Leon in the OG grasps her neck in a non-fun way and she uses her steel instrument to poke him in the leg to stop him. Then we could have seen them have a more intimate moment where Leon apologizes and they embrace or have a will they or won't they moment. Again, just wishful thinking. Chief Torres Mendez / Big Cheese. I like the Big Cheese's portrayal in the remake as much as the OG one. He could have been an interesting stalker enemy. He should have had more screen time because he would know so much about the village. Obviously, we get that in the notes, but I wish Mendez had some sort of audio recordings of himself openly talking about his village and Los Iluminados. Anyhow, nice character, and I have little to no complaints with his characterization. Ramon Salazar. Salazar's lack of campiness is sorely missed in the remake. He's interpreted well by his new voice actor, but I wish he was written similarly to the OG. I appreciate that Leon's steadfast attitude continues every time he interacts with Salazar. He's indeed talking too much. He indeed does talk too much and likes to yap. He definitely speaks Japanese. Jack Krauser. I could understand Krauser's feelings regarding government betrayal, but what I couldn't understand is his hatred for Leon. That's when I realized that Krauser has rage, but he wanted Leon to best him. At the end of his main boss fight on the military island, Krauser tells Leon, "Do what you have to do." Throughout his time on screen, Krauser consistently says things to make Leon want to end Krauser. He wants Leon to be filled with rage and anger, to see that power is the most important thing in this world. He trained him after all. I think I prefer his portrayal in the OG because he was working with Wesker and you could infer more things about him. I think I just find him a bit puzzling to analyse in this remake. His voice acting is cool in the remake, but we can never forget OG Krauser's voice actor, RIP Jim Ward. Lord Osman Sadler. He was boring and irrelevant in this game. Krauser was giving more main villain energy than him, even Salazar to some extent. His voice actor did a good job in terms of general voice acting, but the writing and direction of the character is not giving Lord Osman Sadler. It's quite generic. It's giving a generic villain. Leon and Sadler's back and forths and quips and jabs were a major defining moment or moments of Sadler and Leon's personalities, which have been stripped down in favour for serious and solemn men. He's not memorable in this game at all. Even Remake Wesker is more memorable and he's not even in the main campaign. A disappointing reimagining of the iconic villain, but at least he's in the game and serves his purpose story-wise and gameplay-wise. Wesker. I like the voice acting for Wesker a lot. He's fun to play as in the Mercenaries too. I do wish he had a tinge of an English accent, but beggars can't be choosers. He's very driven and solemn, more so than in previous iterations of the character. I can't remember a moment where he jokes or really lets his guard down around Ada. I wish that he and Krauser had worked together like in the OG. We could have gotten more screen time with him and see how he interacts with a male character as opposed to a female character. Is he tougher or a little more relaxed? Is he more trusting or less trusting of Krauser than Ada? Just wishful thinking, I suppose. Let's talk about the graphics and art style of the remake. The village. The brown motif from the original is missing and I'm sad about it. If you watched my review of the OG, you would know how important the brown colour motif is to the village and its underlying story and atmospheric qualities. The best comparative example I could give you is the Demon's Souls remake. The colour palette and art style in the original was specific and intentional, but the remake lost some of the intentionality and specificity and just focused on shiny and realistic graphics. The castle. The graphics and art style in Chapter 9 are probably my favourites in the entire game. The detailing and colouring are so beautiful and engaging to me. I do like the realistic looking castle walls, but the colouring is a little too mute for my liking. The military island. I love the rugged look of the island. The art style and graphics evoke a sense of danger at every turn. The metallic and dark motif of the military island just screams to the player that they need to get Ashley and get the heck off the island, back to the US of A. Let's talk about the music and OST. RE4 Remake and a lot of the Resident Evil RE Engine games' approach to music is one of an ambient notion as opposed to the bombastic tracks and songs that earlier titles in the series have. It is understandable to some extent because the louder, more eventful music offsets the serious, intense tone of the RE Engine's games and the way they are trying to bring about seriousness during the gameplay experience. However, the classic game soundtracks were good at terrifying players due to their bombastic nature and where they were placed and played, typically during jump scares or short time frame moments. I wish Serenity was played in save rooms, especially in the Merchant save room in chapters 3 and 4. The OST is fine and a lot of the boss fight tracks are solid. Lastly, let's compare the OG to the remake. I have made some comparisons here and there, but I wanted to dedicate a brief portion of this review to comparing the original to the remake. I'll reference Crowbcat's second video on the original versus the remake of Resident Evil 4 too. Ada's voice acting. I know this is a contentious topic and I'll be respectful as I can with my criticism. Ada's voice acting in this game feels like her actress was reading a book. When she interacts with Leon in the castle and on the way to the island, the chemistry is lacking and the flirtatious tone from the original is missing. Her actress is not the worst in the world, but with proper direction and maybe some more voice acting training, she could have done a great job. I see good moments of her acting in separate ways, but not consistently. If she does appear in another game, I hope there is much improvement. Let's talk about my thoughts on Crowbcat's second video. So he makes the Last of Us 2 comparison and I actually agree with him. He presented his argument there really well in my opinion. I don't think Resident Evil 4 Remake is soulless. Resident Evil 4 Remake is missing some of the soul of the original when it comes to the voice acting, some level designs, the script, the colour palette, art style and the OST. I think because he used such an intense title, it upset many fans of the remake. I'll never sit here and say the remake is a bad game, but I don't think it has that lightning in a bottle magic of the original. The way the OG influenced the industry in the 2000s and onwards is like how Souls games and the Last of Us games influenced the industry in the 2010s and 2020s. If the OG had modern controls instead of tank controls, it would have sold even more than it already has. So yeah, that was my review of Resident Evil 4 Remake. I'm sure I have some opinions about the game that ruffles some people's feathers. I think overall it's a fine game and it's completely understandable why a good chunk of RE fans call this one the GOAT. I wish all the games in the series had the level of replay value RE4 OG and Remake have, but that's neither here nor there. Well, that's all folks. I appreciate your time and hope God blesses you in many ways. I hope to see you in the comments for friendly discussion regarding my review and your own thoughts on this remake. Please like, hype, subscribe, comment and share. God bless you and goodbye.